welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast, the show by fans for fans of your Milwaukee Brewers. Hi, welcome Brewer fans to another Brew Crew Review Podcast. This is Craig. Joining me today is Scott and Vince, my co-hosts. How are you guys doing?
Just
hey,
awesome.
Hey, Craig, how's it going? Awesome, because the Brewers are turning up the heat. I correctly predicted the Brewers would go 6-1 the last week. Homestand, the final homestand of the season. You guys were a little bit, I guess I'd call it pessimistic, and only picked us to go 5-2. But luckily, Brewers did go 6-1, and I'm not sure if the Cubs won it all this week. So the Brewers are suddenly in command of a wild card spot at this point with 6 games left to go, and are on the verge of making the playoffs in consecutive years for only the second time in their 50-year franchise history. What's your guys' take on these exciting developments and doing also without their MVP? Well, we had talked about it on a previous podcast a little bit, but this team, it seems like under Craig Counsell, has really performed well in September in other years as well. So I don't think anyone would have predicted that the Brewers were going to go and clean house like they have in September, especially if you would have been told that Christian Yelich was going to be injured, that we were going to continue to have pitching injuries. The fact that this team has overcome so much adversity, I think, in the past few weeks is really a testament, I think, to Craig Counsell at this point. And, it's interesting because it does beg the question, where was this style of play the rest of the year? It'd be nice to, kind of go into a playoff or potential playoff situation well rested and not having had to face some of the pressure that the Brewers currently have to face. But, hey, I'll take it. At this point in the year to be where we're at, I think it's pretty exciting, especially given that, I think so many people gave this team up for dead, even just a month ago, 2 months ago especially. So it's obviously a very exciting time of year.
Yeah, what a difference a week or two makes here, huh? I mean, we had talked about this for so long, and it said, if we could just hang around, then, that once we hit September, we could make a run. And we were like, well, this is a team that probably has to put together something along the lines of a 10-game winning streak or something like that. But if there's ever a time to do it, this team might be able to. And then Yelich went down, and then we kind of tempered our enthusiasm a little bit. But lo and behold, this team has done pretty much exactly what we've been saying they could do for the last 2 months.
Yeah, and some big contributors in the Brewers' success. Obviously, our big free agent signed last year, Mike Moustakas, who came back to become a Brewer again. And, of course, our late in the game signing of Yasmani Grandal, who's been awesome. I believe he's walked over 100 times this year. And then you add in our rookie sensation, Keston Hiura. And I think that really makes our lineup still really scary, even with Christian Yelich out of the lineup, which is pretty amazing to think about. But I guess the other thing is, apparently when Brent Suter's on the active roster, the Brewers just do not lose very often. And I think he's kind of like some type of weird X factor. And it's going to be an enjoyable ride here as we finish out the last 6 games on the road, 3 in Cincinnati, 3 in Colorado. But at this point, we are 4 games up over the next closest team, which would be the Cubs still, and for the second wild card. And in fact, we go into the week tied with the Washington Nationals for the top wild card seat. So at this point, the odds are pretty likely it's going to be a Brewers versus National wild card game, unless there's some outside chance the Brewers could actually catch the Cardinals for the division. But with 3 games back, that'd be very difficult, but still mathematically possible. I don't know what your take is on this, Vince. You're living out there in D.C. I'm here in Milwaukee. Scott, I'm sure you're willing to fly to either for the wild card game, but it looks like one of our cities is going to be hosting the wild card, and of course we're all going to be rooting for the Brew Crew. But what are your overall thoughts on this?
I mean, on a selfish note, living right by the stadium, it's, here in Washington, of course, it'd be, again, on a personal level, great to see the Brewers come back out here. But I think that anything we can do to get home field advantage would be better off for the organization. Although that being said, I think the Brewers play the Nationals very tough out here in Washington. You guys might remember, but it was about a month ago the Brewers had a crazy 14-inning game against the Nationals on a Saturday night and ended up winning. It was just a great game, and traditionally have played them pretty well, I think, out here on the road. So either way, the Brewers are hot right now, and I think that they're going to be able to play anywhere and be a formidable force in the playoffs. And it all comes back down to, who's starting that day, at least for the first few innings. But I think in a one-game scenario, you're going to see the bullpen being obviously utilized right away from the get-go. So it could be really interesting. I don't think that the location makes a ton of difference, to be totally honest, but we'll see. So, for the hometown fans, let's hope it's in Milwaukee. But on a selfish note, I will definitely be at the game here if it's in Washington, D.C.
Well, yeah, I think really – oh, go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it's got to be cool to obviously have, the team you love and then the team in your hometown, like potentially or in the city that you're living with, potentially have to play each other. It's easy to root for, but, that way, even if, something happens and the Brewers didn't move on, you still have the Nationals there, so you get to see even more baseball potentially. But, I don't know. It's like we've already kind of pointed out, it's highly unlikely that the Brewers are going to be able to overtake the Cardinals. It's also at this point fairly unlikely that the Cubs are going to be able to come back and sneak in and get into the playoffs too. So with those scenarios, I guess just for fun, we should at least break down what's going on. The Nationals, they're going to have a homestand now where they're going to play Phillies and Indians. So
yeah, Phillies and Cleveland at home this next week here in D.C. And we should also point out the Nationals are 5-5 in their last 10 games. Brewers are 8-2, so definitely the hotter team at the moment.
Yep. Cardinals, they have 3 on the road against Arizona and then 3 at home against the Cubs, who they've proven recently to have no problem beating, as it seems. And, of course, for the Cubs schedule, they actually have 3 on the road against Pittsburgh, so there's a real chance they could wind up sweeping that. But then they have to go, like we just said, into St. Louis and play the last 3 games of the year. That will not be any fun. And then finally, of course, your Milwaukee Brewers. Of course, you need to know this. We're playing a Cincinnati Reds team in Cincinnati that has some good pitching and has some good hitting. They've been reasonably hot as of late, but have not been able to put much together all year. And then finally,
even with Derek Johnson, Scotty, the Reds are still 73-83 on the season right now.
Yeah, no, I am very much surprised by that. And then finally, your Milwaukee Brewers will finish 3 games in Colorado taking on the Rockies. So, and obviously at Coors Field, anything can happen. So, yeah, a lot of good baseball still ahead. Like, I'm not saying, like, right now anyway, like, we're just kind of looking at it. We're not assuming anything yet. But, if you wait 3 or 4 days, maybe there's going to be a clear picture.
Well, here's another thing with the picture that's kind of interesting and works in the Brewers' advantage. If indeed there was some outside chance the Brewers had a really bad week and the Cubs had a bounce back week from their horrific last week, and they ended up tied with the Brewers for the second wild card, the Brewers won the season series against the Cubs. They would host that game at Miller Park if there was another 1-game playoff. Not worried about that happening. Don't think it's going to happen. More likely scenario would be the Brewers actually tied with the Nationals for both wild card spots at the same exact record. In that instance, I believe the Brewers did win the season series against the Nationals, and they would host the game with a tie. So as we go
did the Brewers sweep the Nationals in Milwaukee?
I believe yes.
Jack, you could have the interns confirm that, because that would be the case, because the Brewers were 1-2 in Washington this year in the 3-game series out here. So they would have had to have swept that series in Milwaukee. So I'm assuming that's what happened then.
I believe they did.
Yeah, they did.
But-
They did, Craig. Just look. Yep.
So that's really good. But here's an interesting thing, and maybe Scott just pointed this out. I'm going to miss it. But the Nationals, the Brewers with 6 games left in the season this week, the Nationals actually play 8 games in 7 days this week. They actually have a doubleheader schedule against the Phillies, which I don't really like because it's really pretty atypical to get swept in a doubleheader. So that's like 1 win right there, but it also could be 1 loss. So, but with that being said, they've got a tough stretch going into that the end of the season. So, we'll see what happens. But it'll be an interesting week, and we'll be obviously rooting for anyone who's playing the Nationals. Because I'd really love to have that game be in Milwaukee, and of course, all Brewer fans who are huge listeners to our podcast would love that to be the case as well. So,
well, yeah,
we shall see. But
except for those Brewer fans who live in D.C., man. But no, just kidding. They're on a personal anecdote, I'll just say that the Nationals did approach me about buying season tickets next year. So I got invited to this thing for prospective season ticket holders, and I wore a Brewers cap and jersey to a national season ticket thing. So just for the record, I wanted to point that out very clearly.
Awesome.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Show your allegiance. I guess one more thing.
Oh yeah.
If for whatever reason we were tied with the Cardinals, then I believe the 1-game playoff would be in St. Louis. Is that correct? I'm pretty sure.
No, the Brewers. Oh yeah, I think it might be. Can you have your interns look at that, Scott?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think
trying to look at it now, but I think that St. Louis won the season series.
Scott, your interns are actually doing a pretty good job, and I believe that is actually the case. But you should maybe fire one anyway. It's just the fact that we had to kind of hesitate on that. Yeah, I mean, the exciting thing, besides kind of being in the driver's seat in our magic number, to clinch a playoff spot in a wild card game at a minimum, I think is down to 3, which with 6 games to play is awesome. I mean, we could conceivably lose every single game this week and still make that wild card because all it would take is 3 Cubs losses, and they're handing those out like nobody's business. So, pretty excited, pretty pumped, cannot believe. I'd almost, if you guys remember back to the last, I think it was Sunday or Monday of last season, and we had a podcast, and at that time we were still very concerned whether or not the Brewers were going to make the playoffs. At that time, I'm actually more confident this time, this same basically day of this season at the beginning of the last week than I was last year, and that's incredible to me.
Yeah, no, that's very true. And we're not going to end up with the same win total last year, but the division, as we pointed out all along throughout this podcast this season, it's been kind of a weird division this year. The Brewers were not playing well for at least 2 months of the season, seemingly, or about 500 ball or even a little bit below. But then again, so were the Cubs and so were the Cardinals for quite a while as well. They turned it on a little bit quicker than the Brewers did. So it was a weird division this year, but the Brewers, we're right where we wanted to be and right where we kind of had hoped to be at the beginning of the year. 86 wins as it currently stands, 86 and 70, so 16 games over 500, with 6 games to play yet in the regular season.
Hey,
by the way, Scott, I really quick, I did get a note from the interns. The Brewers were 9-10 against the Cardinals this season.
Damn it. So close. Well, anyway, I did actually want to point out, obviously throughout if you just look at the last month, I mean, this has been a team that's obviously has been surging. So just looking at the last month, you wouldn't believe the list of players on this team that are hitting over 250. And I think I'm just going to rattle off the names really quick. Does anybody that's hitting over 250, so having a decent month, basically, Christian Yelich, obviously, but, he's out for the year. So after that, we've got Gamble, Grisham, Pena, Hera, and Spangenberg, and that's it. But I mean, what an odd list of names. How many of these people were even on our opening day roster? Or how many of them were expected to be key contributors this year? I mean, it's really it kind of just speaks to the fact that everybody on this team is really stepping up in Yelich's absence to, hopefully help us grind our way to a playoff berth.
Yeah, that's a great point. Let's think back again to just a month ago, Ben Gamble was in AAA San Antonio a month ago. So when you're even looking at the Corey Spangenberg, had just been called up to replace Ben Gamble, I believe, in that transaction. So we're getting contributions from guys that weren't even with the team. Tyler Austin was in the minor leagues. Who else? Tyrone Taylor. I'm sure for Trent Grisham, they was called up, in August at some point. So a lot of these guys that are contributing right now down the stretch, again, we're not even with the team. And when you, especially, again, get back to the injuries with me, obviously Christian Yelich, but don't forget, we missed Mike Moustakas and Keston Hiura for good chunks of time during this nice little run here in September. Brandon Woodruff finally came back just in the past week. So we've had a lot of adversity to deal with, but it seems like these guys are really just coming together at the right time. It's fairly unbelievable, and I do think it needs to be said again that the Brewers trade deadline acquisitions, again, not flashy. I think there was some anger towards the organization for not doing more at the trade deadline, and remains to be seen if it was enough. But the guys that we did acquire, Ray Black, Drew Pomeranz, guys like this are stepping up in a big way and really contributing to this team down the stretch.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I wanted to throw out too. Like in the last month, anyway. What would you say was our weak point all this year? The bullpen, right? Everybody was saying, "Oh, our bullpen was our strength last year. Now we're getting blown up. Like, what's going on?"
Yeah.
In the last 30 days, these are all the pitchers in the Brewers bullpen with an ERA of under 3 right now. Okay, just in the last month. Well, I'm going to count Woodruff in there because he's been starting but only doing a couple innings. But Suter, Hader, Pomeranz, Peralta, Junior Guerra, and Ray Black, and Alex Claudio. So, I mean, what a list. I mean, that's basically almost our entire bullpen. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah. Pomeranz has a 2.42 ERA since joining the Milwaukee Brewers at the trade deadline this year, which is incredible to me. 21 games.
The interesting thing about Pomeranz is when we made that acquisition, and everyone was like, there was that extraneous tweet that someone said we were getting a significant haul for trading Mauricio Dubon, and everyone was like, "Oh, we're getting Will Smith back. Their closer is awesome." And also, they're like, "Drew Pomeranz, Ray Black, what? You lied to us." And so the bottom line is, Will Smith himself has been pitching much more poorly than Drew Pomeranz has been for the Brewers here since the trade deadline. And I actually thought that Drew Pomeranz, who spent most of the year as a starter for the San Francisco Giants, possibly was coming into the same thing for the Brewers. But obviously, I think when they made the acquisition, they had him earmarked for the bullpen all along because he was having some success there since being moved to the bullpen by the Giants. And they liked what they saw, and they required him to kind of keep him in the same role that he got transitioned to by the Giants. And again, that was a brilliant call by Stearns, and the acquisition really is working out in our favor. Obviously, Dubon could become a good player over time, but I mean, to help us out for this season, that was great acquisition. And then we've already hammered it on the last couple of podcasts, but Jordan Lyles has been far and away our best pitcher since the trade deadline. And I mean, he was kind of just like a retread that we brought back. I mean, just phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely incredible from Jordan Lyles. I want to get back to that really quick, Craig, on Pomeranz. He has made one start for Milwaukee, and that's it. So, yeah, he spent the rest of his time in the bullpen. And to me, he's been like really the stabilizing factor out there for this team. And I don't know if it's just the fact he's got a 2.42 ERA right now, or if it's just kind of an intangible thing. But Pomeranz, to me, has really done a great job of solidifying the pen. And then you've got some guys stepping up. Josh Hader's been less prone to the long ball again, which is good over the last month. But to me, it's Pomeranz and Suter in the bullpen, and then this weird combination of Jordan Lyles and guys kind of coming back from injury in the starting rotation. It's just been bizarre and awesome.
Absolutely. And Drew Pomeranz is someone who kind of has a similar career arc that Andrew Miller had. I mean, he was drafted as a first-round – I think they're both first-round picks as left-handed starters, and Andrew Miller being quite high, and eventually over time got turned into a bullpen. And everyone knows the Andrew Miller story, where he basically was a key cog to helping Cleveland Indians get to the postseason a couple of years in a row. And, and I think Drew Pomeranz could really see his career take off if he continued in this type of role. So it's like, feels like the Brewers kind of uncovered something here, and hopefully the Brewers can possibly bring him back as a free agent or something, but yeah, I mean, for the stretch run, he's definitely a very valuable part of our bullpen, no doubt.
Yeah, and Jordan Lyles, on that point, becoming a Milwaukee Brewer again around the trade deadline. Jordan Lyles was 6-1 with a 2.35 ERA.
Wow, what a beast!
It's unbelievable. I mean, this is a guy who I was just happy we brought him back because he made like one of the key wins in the last season against the Pirates in September, I think it was, where he actually had an extra inning, scored a winning run in the extra innings or something like that, and he contributed on offense actually. But anyway, I mean, yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah. 10 starts. 6-1 record right now, and 53 2/3 innings pitched. The guy is struck out 50 batters and walked 20. So, I mean, he's been as solid as you can be for a guy, or for what we could have possibly expected from a guy like Jordan Lyles when we acquired him.
Yeah. Now, one thing about a lot of Brewer fans over the last week have kind of been, especially that series of Cubs against the Cardinals, going into it, they're really happy that one of the teams is going to have to lose some games, not sharing a couple losses. Well, it was a 4-game sweep at Wrigley for the Cardinals, and I know a lot of Brewer fans are holding on hope the Brewers will still be able to win the NL Central as repeat champions, but 3 games back with 6th place, it's not looking that good. I think a lot of the Brewer fans wanted us to be able to avoid the wild card game altogether. But even then, if we get beyond the wild card game, our NLDS opponent would be the Los Angeles Dodgers. Obviously, the best team in the NL by far. The Brewers are familiar with them, losing to them in the championship series last year. They feel like they're even a better team this year. But I actually am under the belief that I'd rather the Brewers face the Dodgers in a 5-game series than meet them in the NLCS again, if we were to make it that far, going the other route, and have to beat them in 7 games. I was wondering what Scott and Vince, your thoughts are on that.
I mean, it's interesting because you're probably going to have to face Clayton Kershaw a couple times, either scenario, right? So that's going to be problematic. Obviously, one of the best pitchers in baseball, but I don't necessarily have a preference, Craig, because you've got to play out either way, right? If you're going to advance to the World Series, you're going to have to beat teams like the Dodgers. You're going to have to beat the Cardinals. You're going to have to beat the Braves, really good teams. So I don't necessarily think that matters a ton, because either way you've got to go through, again, a lot of really, really good teams.
Well, in theory, though, I mean, I guess the math checks out. Like, I mean, if you did want to play, if you had to play the best team, you'd want to play them the shortest amount of time, so that, I mean, obviously, like, you would think that you'd be able to win over time. Like, if you had to play them 50 times, you would think that they would win more, like it would even itself out. But, if it was only like, if we played them in the wild card, like, obviously anything could happen. So I'm okay with it. I can sort through the logic. It makes a little bit of sense to me. I'd be okay playing them in a 5-game series, especially because this is a very, very, very good Dodger team, but historically they have not been great in the playoffs. So this would be nice, be interesting, and get a little revenge from last year. That'd be nice.
There's one other really key thing I want to point out about the Brewers once they do make the postseason here this week is that every game they play and every series they're going to play in this postseason, they're going to be the underdogs. I mean, even if we host the wild card game at Miller Park, we're going to have to go up against either Max Scherzer or Steven Strasburg. And obviously whoever we're going to throw out there, we've discussed this ad nauseum, but Jordan Lyles, Brandon Woodruff, mixture, bullpen, whatever, we're going to throw everything at them for the wild card game. However, we're going to come into that game at a disadvantage and looking at underdogs. So the pressure is going to be on the other team to beat us, and the pressure is going to be off this team who just lost this their MVP. To it feels like the Brewers are kind of going to be on borrowed time at that point, and if they lose, they have that built-in excuse. Well, if Christian was still on the team, still healthy, we probably could have got by the past that series or whatnot. So I think that's really going to let the Brewers really play loose and, like they've got nothing to lose and, basically make a run. And the other team, it's looking about this, if we do get to that 5-game series against the Dodgers, the expectations of the Dodgers, who did not win the World Series again last year, they'll be on them once again to get well beyond that round. So in a 5-game set against a Brewer team with nothing to lose, the pressures are going to be all on them. And so I really like where the Brewers stand going into the playoffs. Obviously, I'd love to have Christian Yelich healthy, but I mean, I really just feel like it's going to help the guys, perform as underdogs, so to speak.
Yeah, let's hope that that's the scenario that plays out. I think either way, no matter who you're playing, it really helps to play like the Brewers have obviously the past few weeks, and I mean that in the sense that these guys are playing loose. They're playing like they've got nothing to lose. They're playing like maybe they were expected to play at the beginning of the year, but haven't been expected to play like the last couple of months, and all of a sudden now we're watching it unfold at the most critical time of the year. So, when you're a team that's playing like that, I think that it matters. The opponent matters less than it might in other cases. But this is the perfect time to be playing like they are.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very, very exciting. And I guess there is a chance not only that we would be playing the Dodgers, but there's a chance that after that we could be playing against the other team that knocked us out of the playoffs, the St. Louis Cardinals. So there's a chance here. I mean, obviously a rather unlikely one, but there is a chance that we could be exercising a lot of demons. And yes, Craig, we are definitely on borrowed time, but at the same time, like you said, I mean, it's more like a positive spin on it. Like, we're kind of playing with house money at this point. Like, whatever happens after this is like gravy. Nobody expected us to get this far or be here, like after Yelich went down, and now they can have that kind of us against the world mentality, and hopefully it works out for them.
Yeah, so it's going to be a dangerous combination. We're obviously going to be the highest team in the playoffs going in, and we're going to be a team with nothing to lose. And I think teams are going to be scared to play us. I think it's going to work to our advantage, but we shall see. So this week, obviously, 6 games left of the season, all on the road, 3 against the Reds in Cincinnati, 3 against the Rockies in Colorado. What is your guys' predictions for the week? And also, if you just want to add a bonus for our last week of the season, our last prediction week of the season, if you want to throw out the date, or I guess the day of the week this week that you feel the Brewers will clinch their playoffs.
Oh man, don't jinx us, Greg. Don't jinx us, man.
Huh?
Don't jinx us.
If you want to say not at all, that's your prerogative. But yeah.
Okay. No, I'm going to say 4-2. I'll just say 4-2 and leave it at that.
Yeah, I was going to say 4-2 also. I don't know why, but like I've really been a little bit worried about this Red series. So I think that, I'm going to say 4-2 as well.
I'm going to say 3-3, but I'll say Friday will be the day that we get in. So we shall see.
Wow.
And
I
don't even know. For all your Brewer fans, we're going to mark on your calendar, the NL wildcard game will be played on Tuesday night, October 1st. I don't know. We'll probably just be able to do a podcast as ahead of that. So by that point, we'll probably know who the Brewer starter is and all that stuff. But, we can talk about that in the next podcast. But this is an exciting one going into the final week, and really did not think we'd be here. I mean, I was mentioning to Scott off air, and, it was just a week from today where Ryan Braun came up to bat against the Cardinals. And, we talked about it last podcast. It felt like that bat was our season was on the line. And here, just 7 short days later, not only is the season not long on the line, but we're in the driver's seat for our second consecutive playoff appearance. And that's only happened one other time in World Series, in the 50-year history of the Brewers, and that was in 81 and 82. So,
yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah.
In fact, I was going to say, our inside source Tom Carter said that he was actually hoping that he would be able to listen to a podcast of us hopefully within the next couple of days, even talking about us clinching a playoff berth. So he says he's hoping that we don't have to wait a full week to be able to give him another podcast. So that's good.
Scott, the correct term for Tom Carter, you'd call him our source or whatever, is our anonymous source. You don't want to say Tom Carter's name on the air, you guys. You got to say it's Tom C. or T. Carter. I think that we've gone over this before, but just friendly reminder. I
thought that was only if he gave us like inside information. Like in this case, I just listed him as like our inside and our anonymous source, but he didn't have any info for me this time. So I was like, I think it's okay then. Or
I mean, fair enough. I think he also said he never wants his name to be used on the air because he works for the team. So I think in the future, let's just say Tom C. or T. Carter. Let's not say the whole full name of Tom Carter on the air.
I guess I could see how it could like potentially like put future inside information at risk if I mention it this time. But okay, I mean, this will be the last
time. Thanks, Tom.
That's great. And did we get Chad's predictions for the week? Is he on?
He is not chimed in yet this season. We'll see if we can get him in for the playoffs. Maybe he can be on like our wild card special or something. We'll see.
Cool.
Be the wild card in our wild card special.
And a big question for our fans, Craig. Are we going to do a Brew Crew review the movie too? To celebrate the wild card if we were to win it, especially if it's the second wild card.
That'd be interesting. Possibly.
Okay.
Brew Crew Review Gone Wild Part 2.
Yeah, Brew Crew Review Gone Wild.
Yeah.
We'll have to see. For all you fans that probably have Netflix, it reminds me they actually ripped off our idea, and they're on Netflix now. There's Between Two Ferns, the movie. Starring Zach Galifianakis. So,
yep, that is true.
We were between two, like, I don't know, Asian screens. I think we were between two plants for a while, maybe at the beginning.
Yeah, but they're both great movies that highlight the awesomeness of public access television. So
we also had a nice rug that really tied the room together on the set. Got a lot of beer on it. Yeah.
Scott did spill some beer on that. Yeah. Smells.
Yep.
Oh.
What can you do? All right.
Luckily, not everybody used that rug, so it was no big deal.
Scotty, do we have anything in the that's true. Do we have anything in the mailbag today? Have you checked our mail?
No, we don't. I haven't checked, but no, I'm just gonna assume that we don't have any. We only have like 2 minutes left anyway, so
we actually really did get a note on Twitter from someone who did say that they wrote into our show, just for the record.
Well,
so
I mean, we only have 2 minutes left. I could try to look really quick, but it's probably unlikely.
No, it's fine. We'll get to it during the next episode, but that is a reminder. We probably won't actually read it, but if you're listening to this and you have a question for us, feel free to send it to our email address at brewcrewreviewpodcast@gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter. BrewCrewReview1 is our Twitter handle. Scott, do you want to remind folks how they can access the podcast, just in case?
No, they're listening to it right now.
But if they're listening on YouTube and they want to get it on a streaming service,
I don't know. Yeah,
maybe they want to.
We're pretty much in every streaming service, so like wherever you go, like you can find it. Yeah, just like put in Brew Crew Review or Brewers or baseball or whatever. And like right now, there's probably like a ton of people that are just like, I want to listen to like 6 Brewer podcasts this week because this week has been amazing. I mean, so maybe we get some more fans this week. You never know.
Yeah, so now's the time to do a great episode like we did tonight.
Right. Yeah. Really, this is great.
Yeah, so I'm going to wrap it up by saying, Cubs fans, wait till next year and stay classy and go Brewers.
All right, stay classy, everybody. Go Brewers.
Go Brewers.
Get some champagne ready, guys. Dun, 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 dun.